All right, guys, what's going on? So, today we're going to be talking about Sony and how they more or less ripped rights away from pretty much every unsuspecting consumer that they could. So, smack like on this podcast of sorts, we're just going to be hanging out, very informal. Ask your questions as you have them, and of course, we'll be doing the weekly Q&A and that kind of stuff. So, if you guys have been seeing the news, basically, Sony decided to take away certain privileges for people who have bought their digital copies of their movies. And this is what we've been talking about since the very beginning. We've been saying like don't go digital. If you go digital, you're going to kind of end up in a bad situation. And we're kind of, kind of seen as like these conspiracy theorists. All of us that have been saying, "Hey, don't do this." And now it's happening, right? Now you have the first company, major company, come out and say, if you bought into our sale, if you decided you were going to just buy the item because you wanted it and you trusted that we're going to host this server that's going to hold basically your digital media, well, guess what's going to happen to you now? Now you're going to be at our mercy, and you know how we're going to treat you? Like garbage. No longer will you have access to what you already paid for. We're not talking about renting. We're talking about bought it outright. You paid your hard-earned cash for it, paid full price. And this is why physical is always king, because when you have this kind of nonsense happen where it's like digital manufacturers or content providers decide arbitrarily, you know what, we're going to do what we want. We're just going to give you what we give you. Now you're kind of up, it's a creek without a paddle. And I think this is the beginning, right? Because what then happens when you have Xbox or PlayStation Plus or any of the digital devices that we depend on. I mean, think of Sony, right? Sony is a company that comes out and they want to sell you on the PlayStation all digital version, right? No disc at all. Well, this means you then have to trust their servers. You have to trust them. How are we supposed to do that when they now are just showing us their hand, like just ever so slightly a glimmer as to what the future will hold here? Because you're kidding yourself if you think this is the only example that they're going to do this. And I think this sets a dangerous precedent because it's like, these companies are getting away with this without any kind of legal repercussion. There's no class action lawsuit. There's no government intervention. It's like they're just too big to fail because they're Sony. And I hate this. I 100% hate when massive corporations get up there and tell us, you know what? We're going to strip your rights away. Yeah, you're an owner of this product. Yeah, we sold you this product and you paid full price for it. But guess what? Now you get nothing. Take it or leave it. You're mad about it? Oh, well. And all I've seen are like independent news outlets. Haven't seen like mainstream media talking about it, of course. Nobody's trying to really raise the question as to should digital even be allowed to exist without some sort of legislation requiring, if at the very least they decide to pull, access to those servers, then they're going to then start giving people what they earned, which is their money. And either you give the money or the product back, but it's just now this big giant scam. So that's the first instant of a problem that I've seen. And I see this as going to be something that's definitely going to become more of an issue as time goes on. Now, I also wanted to kind of talk about how this affects more of what we've been seeing happen in the TV world with things like, the introduction, if you will, of TV manufacturers trying to go more towards cloud-based things. Like we see it all the time where they're like, hey, this now has Game Pass built in, or this now has, Shield built in. But what happens when those servers or those apps go away on those TVs similarly, or when you don't have access to your digital library? And I'm one to talk, but, this gets me thinking, I'm on Steam a lot. This can have implications for stuff like that as well. I mean, if there's no consequence for companies stepping in and saying, you know what, we're going to take everything that you paid us and we're just going to say tough. I mean, that's where we are right now, right? And I think that's something that should be talked about more by more people, and you don't really see it a whole lot. So I just kind of wanted to levy the question to you guys. What do you think about it? Do you think that like this is something that's all right, or are you not really for it? Now, normally with these types of live streams, we would have, I'd be on camera and I'd be doing the normal thing here. But of course, as you guys know, we've had audio sync issues, technical difficulties, all kinds of things. So we've got to work through that. And in the meantime, this is what we've got. Now, also, feel free to ask your weekly questions because that's what this time is for as well. I see we've got Craig here. What's going on, Craig? We've got Edwin. What's going on? We've got new member Cisco. Shout out to you, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for becoming a member here. And again, feel free to ask any of the questions that you may or may not have. And so I also kind of want to talk about more of what we've seen as far as this year so far. As you know, it's been a very slow year for televisions and things like that. But now I'm kind of worried about what I've been seeing come out of the whole quantum dot OLED thing. Because, of course, TV manufacturers have kind of, for all intents and purposes, they kind of like busted out all their big moves earlier on in prior years. So now all they can do is say, hey, quantum dot with OLED. And we're seeing it more and more and more. And recently, HDTV Test even came out and he did a comparison against the A95K and the S95B. Now, his findings are his findings. I'm not here to dog on him for that. But what I am here to say is, either way you look at it, I have not personally found anyone two problems with the A95K. One, the affordability of most people, that most people aren't going to be able to afford it. That's just a fact. I mean, it's a product that's kind of DOA. If I'm being very honest with you, it's like, yeah, sure, past like influencers running around and reviewing it, that's great. But the average person isn't going to have $3,000 to spend on just a 55-inch TV. And they wouldn't be willing to. It's kind of like the similar boat with the, A90J back, last year. And we see this happening more and more where it's just kind of like they decide like, hey, these ridiculous prices, we're getting away with it. Let's do it again. And I feel like they think because quantum dots are in the TV, it justifies it. But then we can look and see the Samsung S95B. And it's like, okay, Samsung is clearly showing this technology can be cheaper. Hell, I saw a sale over the 4th of July weekend here that we just got out of where the S95B was going for $17.99. I mean, that was fantastic for the 55-inch. That proves right there that the $3,000 that Sony's charging for the same 55 inches of quantum dot technology, whilst being dimmer, isn't really worth it. At least that's a personal opinion there. Now, I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like this whole thing is going to kind of turn into like a, oh, look what I can do, features this, features that. And of course, you're going to have purists stand up there and talk to us like we're idiots and say everyday people don't understand what the importance of accuracy is, as if, we're just lowbrow knuckle-dragging cavemen smacking our next kill on the ground with a rock or something, It's just, that's how they treat you when they think that they know something. And I'll tell you right now, if you've never auto-called a television, try it. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's at the technology now is at a point where your grandmother could do it if you showed her how to use the software. So I really take protest when so-called professionals try to crap on everyday people like, oh, I know so much more than you because I use computer software. It's like, that's not a reason for these TVs to be more expensive. And I can guarantee you, out of the box, no matter what anyone will say, the Sony is not going to be perfectly calibrated. There's always going to be a need to calibrate it even further to get better accuracy, which is why everybody does that. So it gets to a point where you're like, why the price hike? Like, what's the purpose? And so I think that's one of the things that also kind of work against it. Now, I have a couple of questions here from one from Thomas Lee. What's going on, Thomas? You say, what are your expectations for the Hisense U8H? And will it officially be on sale for retail? Or when will it be on sale for retail? Now, with models like the Hisense U8H, I don't typically expect a whole lot from them in the sense of like OLED level performance, but I am expecting it to be at least at the level it was with something like last year's Hisense U8G. I'm expecting them to build upon it, but this might surprise some people. I'm also expecting it to have a good amount of blooming. So I'm expecting, because of the mini LED, those smaller zones are going to be more, and number obviously, and I feel like that's going to create more blooming, like we've seen on the Samsung sets, on the TCL sets that offer mini LED, where full array seems, because the zones are thicker and bigger, less zones are needed, and so you can get more uniformity across bad local dimming, or rather bad native contrast. So I feel like that's something that's a challenge that mini LED still has to kind of get over. But if they can do it, then I think at the very least they should offer U8G level performance. Now, that does raise the question, you're talking about when is it going on sale? Well, I think as long as the U8G is still at the awesome price it is, I seen it the other day. It was like $599 for the 55 inch. So long as that's the case, I mean, it really wouldn't matter when it goes on sale because the U8G is almost immediately the TV you should buy in that situation because there's nothing that Hisense can do, as arrogant as this is going to sound or as ill-informed as this is going to sound, that Hisense can do to justify spending hundreds more for something that no matter what you're going to do is still going to have some sort of local dimming issues of some sort. So I feel as though when you talk about, when it's going to go on sale, obviously we know Black Friday, well, not this year because it's a late launcher. I think it's not going to launch till like August, some of these TVs. So I mean, we've got a bit of a wait on us. So I think that's one of the problems that we face with this whole thing. And then, of course, after that, then it would end up being, waiting until the sales, which realistically, if it launches late, like let's say they launch it August 30th or August 25th, they love the August 25th for whatever reason. I think you can expect a sale to happen somewhere around like maybe a couple weeks before Thanksgiving or a couple weeks after, but it wouldn't go down too much in price, just enough to be like, oh, okay, I get it. It wouldn't be like where the U8G is, where it's like $599 for the 55 inch. Best you could expect is like maybe $799 or something like that. So um, hopefully that answered your question there. What's going on, Troy? Thank you for being a long-time member. I appreciate you, brother. You said just dropped in to hear what's going on. Just heard you take on the market trend. Which market trend? I'm not sure if, well, maybe you're talking about Sony and their recent ripping away of people's rights here. I mean, I don't know, like, you guys feel free to sound out off on this. This is an open forum, communicate however you will. But, like, I'm really bothered by this because, we've never had that happen in the digital market. I mean, some of you guys have been buying digital games and movies for years. This is the first time I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, where I've seen a company come out and just get away with saying, you know what, you paid for this, you actually, purchased it to own it, and we're just going to remove that right from you as somebody who purchased a product from us, and we're not really doing anything to give you your money back. And it's been really quiet. I haven't heard Sony announce plans to refund anybody. It's just kind of been like, tough. You don't like it, oh well. And I mean, what does this mean for like the PlayStation Store, right? When they want to remove titles, are we going to lose access to that over time? I'm telling you right now, DRM is every content producer's dream, it seems like, in Hollywood, like Sony, Paramount, all these places. And then, of course, you have, the big budget pictures, that not budget pictures, but the big budget gaming companies that like make all these, AAA titles. It's kind of like their dream, too, because they all have this like almost God complex where they want to control your ability to own something that you paid for, which is why they don't like used games, and they refuse to add backwards compatibility on a lot of things that should have it in its entirety. So it gets to a point where I'm just sitting here and I'm like, wow, like this is like the most disrespectful transaction I've ever seen. So I don't know. As far as market trends go, I really hope this does not become a trend because it's going to be a really bad time in the market for sure. But what's going on, Craig? You said, will Hisense and TCL come out this month? I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, they could come out July 25th, or they could come out like late August 25th. Like, it's hard because like nobody's saying anything about these TVs, and it gets to a point where, like, I'll be very honest with you, I get tired of waiting for them to get their acts together. It's just like nobody's going to wait around for you to announce a television that isn't on anybody's radar anyway. Let's be real. Hisense, TCL, they're not the Samsung, Sonys, and LGs that pretty much everybody wants, right? And let's call it what it is. More people are more willing to buy some budget in Samsung T-Series television, than they are to buy a Hisense. They've never heard of it, most people. I can guarantee you, I can walk the street and I ask them, hey, you ever heard of a Hisense TV? They'd be like, a who? You ever heard of a TCL TV? They'd be like, what? And then there's that stigma of, Chinese and it being a national security risk. So with these TVs coming from other countries, I don't know how that kind of is different, but it is. I mean, one's a communist country, clearly communist, but that's just kind of how it is. And people mention that every time I've reviewed a Hisense TV, people have always asked me if this TV was sponsored by the Chinese government or the review was sponsored. And I always have to say no, but this is something that the Chinese competitors have to fight now. So I get it, but it's also something like they're taking their sweet time with releasing these TVs. And they're doing it at a time where, as you guys know, like prices are up, people are kind of losing patience with waiting around on expensive goods. And then we have this weird trend in the market where when we get these expensive goods, they're not really all that great. Like I recently had like an issue, which is why I'm doing the live stream like this anyway. I mean, I just bought a super expensive camera and it's having issues. Like I can't get the video feed to work. And you guys saw in the last live stream I did, the audio just dropped out entirely and it was desynchronized. So we're getting into a weird point where even when you spend like upwards of $3,000 on goods, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be weird. And the timing, I can't say for sure. But you're saying that you would not pay for Sony's expensive TVs. And that's kind of something I've been seeing too. And I agree with 100% Greg. It's like Sony has a price problem, and they always have had a price problem where it's like no matter what you do, it's just top dollar, and they're hiding behind their name. Even if things are recycled, even if things are old, they're going to keep going with it because, hey, who doesn't want the Sony name, right? And that's one of those things that I have to battle constantly when I try to, talk to people, just not even like on the live streams, but off the live streams as well in the comments and just in general explaining like, hey, listen, just because they're Sony doesn't mean that everything they're going to make is going to be golden. Sometimes they can mess up. Sometimes, they're a brand, right? They're a company making machines. So there's room for error, right? So that's always that part. But yeah, I wouldn't pay the Sony tax, as I call it, because that's really what it is. You're just paying for a name that isn't earning it anymore. You guys saw I reviewed the Sony X90K, X95K. I keep talking about those TVs specifically because I'm truly let down by those TVs. Like, I was so excited for the X95K particularly, and the fact that it didn't deliver, like, really shocks me. I didn't expect that. I had the 65-incher, and you would think 65 inches, you get more zones, everything would be wonderful, and it's a mini LED from Sony, so I figured, that'd be a super win, and it just didn't happen like that. So we've got a question from Messy Marvin. What's going on, Messy Marvin? And thank you for being a longtime member, same as you, Craig. You say, should I wait to next year or get a TV this year? Well, it really depends on your aim. So if you're looking to get just an upgrade, so like let's say you have a TV that's 5 years old or, 4 years old even, and you're not really satisfied with the colors. I kind of had a problem like that, like with my, what was it, the Samsung KS8000, for example. It's a 2016 TV. Not terribly old, but it was old enough to where I noticed constantly, like, there was a difference when I would compare it to the U8G and things like that. So I just swapped it out for that. And I think those are the instances where, yeah, I would totally upgrade. Like, if you find you're watching content and you're just not happy, you're genuinely like, I'm kind of bored by all of this. I don't really find things exciting anymore and I want a new thrill. Then yeah, absolutely, I'd say go for it because waiting, I've found like I do this thing every year where I get the same exact question, like, should I wait till next year? And then next year comes and then we see the TVs and then I have to break bad news where I find it like with the 90 series from Sony or, where Samsung with their 90 series with the QN90A with the blooming and stuff. And it's crazy because you'll believe it or not, sometimes it gets to the point where people are like, I don't know if I believe this, man. Like every review I read, they say it's amazing. And then here you are saying it's terrible. Now, this is where it gets uncomfortable and awkward for me because it's like, I'm a YouTuber, right? Like I'm here in the game of YouTube, watching bigger YouTubers, conversing with them, talking with a bunch of other community creators. I know what people do to make money as YouTubers, and I know how they play the system, play the fans, all that. And the biggest game right now, we can see it right now happening with the A95K. If nobody's going to spill the tea and blow the whistle on this, I'll be the only one doing it all day, every day. I mean, look at what's happening. It's Reportergate. It's just no one can say anything about this product but cherry-picked reviewers. Vincent, What Hi-Fi, all the established reporters that have good rapport with marketing managers and PR managers to advertise and market this thing, great. But then it kind of creates this narrative like it's fantastic. Fans go into it with high expectations. And if those expectations aren't met, then you obviously know what happens. Then the one-star reviews start happening, and then I've seen it happen where even on owners forums where there'll be customers that'll be like, I've read all these great reviews and then I got the product and I wasn't happy. There were issues with, hooking it up to my AVR, or there were issues where I had random cutouts just with my soundbar. And they're treated almost like zealots. Like you can't have that experience. It's impossible on this brand. And so I think that's one of the things that I find to be the weirdest thing when we talk about these TVs year in, year out. So honestly, waiting, and I know it's a long way of answering your question, Marv, but it's one of those things where waiting another year might not necessarily be beneficial because we're at a good spot right now. We've got the C1 at really low prices. We got the U8G if you don't want to go the OLED route. We've got some TCL options that are pretty solid, like the S546. The market's pretty good as far as prices and getting an affordable TV that gives you excellent picture of pretty much almost any price point. And after this live stream, not really after the live stream, but shortly after, then the next TV that I'll be getting in favor of obviously making sure we're doing our due diligence, making sure every price point's covered for the most part with our reviews, we're doing the Sony X85K. I've seen a lot of requests to review that model, so that's the one I'll be doing next. Just making sure that, again, it's good to go. I'll let you guys know if it is or isn't. I'll let you know early. I'm not expecting black levels from it. I am expecting it to be a little on the grayer side of things, but we'll see. We'll test it, numbers, figures, and real world stuff more importantly than anything. So hopefully that helps you out, man. I mean, I would say you're good to buy now because the market's good. But again, if you're trying to get maybe like a Gen 2 Quantum Dot OLED, then maybe, of course, wait for next year. But those things are probably going to be, just like now, really expensive. What's going on, Enoch? I appreciate you being a long time member, a 24-month badge right there. That is awesome to see, brother. And you said, what's good quantum? I remember the Sony X930E. You said that TV weighs over 70 pounds for a 55-inch, which was considered very heavy for a TV. Do you remember which TV? I'm sorry, you said, do you remember which TV weighs 70 pounds before the X930E? I actually don't. I remember how heavy the 930E was. The 940E just as heavy. Like, those TVs came out and they were just absolutely a pain to move around and all that stuff. Excellent brightness though, especially even still. I still don't think Sony has produced a TV quite as magnificent brightness wise as those TVs, the X930, 940 era of brightness, and their local dimming has gotten worse as time has gone on a little bit towards the hazier side of things. So it's one of those things that it really is hit or miss. What's going on? Craig says, Prime Day is next week. Do you expect any more price drops? There is always the possibility that they surprise us and they, say, hey, you know what, let's say, for example, the LG A1, we'll put that on sale for like $600. I mean, they could do something wild like that, depending on the size and all that. But typically when you get up to the larger screen sizes, the only ones I've ever really seen hit a sale is usually like TCL. Like, they've really been like discounting their stuff like a lot. Probably because they haven't put out anything and they know that they're on the long late summer train. Who knows? Maybe even fall for some of these places. But I think, honestly speaking, I don't really expect a whole lot because a lot of stuff hasn't released yet. I mean, we're now in July and they haven't released a good amount of stuff. We're still waiting on Sony's Quantum Dot OLED, Hisense, and their higher end line, the entirety of it. TCL and any of their TVs from this year. I mean, I don't even know if Vizio's still a player this year. That's how bad it is. I mean, it really does get a little strange from time to time. So hopefully that does help a little bit. But no, I don't really expect a lot in terms of price drops. Patrick says C1 OLED. C1 OLED is a great OLED. I still recommend it. Think it's fantastic. What's going on, Big C Dub? You said, what's up, Q? Crazy hot here in Texas. I hear you, man. It's hot here in sunny Florida, man. We get up to over, I mean, I went out the other day and I'm just hopping in the car. It's like 105, 106 degrees, man. It's insanity. So, yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. So, got to make sure you're staying cool. I always think it's funny, too, because like I look at the temperatures as I go out and, just live my daily life. And one of the things that I see all the time is like how high the temperatures are. And I immediately think about people who come from up north and they like travel down here on like a summer trip for like Disney World or something. And I'm like, some of these people, like, you see them, they look like they're about to have heat stroke any minute. And it's just like, man, like, that wasn't included in the brochure. You hear Florida's hot, but you really don't know. Like, places like Texas and Florida don't play with the heat. So, yeah, man, just hydrate. That's the big thing here. We've got Joseph. What's going on, man? I appreciate you for being a long-time member, brother. You said gotta buy Tom. What's Tom? I don't know what that is. Rohan, what's going on? You said, hey Q, does PWM bother you? Yes, it does. I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest with you. I really don't like those kinds of features, usually because they're associated with a ton of flickering. So that's just not my thing. I'm also, truthfully speaking, not a fan of most forms of black frame insertion technology. Samsung, still to this day, in my personal opinion, has the worst implementation of black frame insertion because they never get it right. It's been flickery on every TV that I've ever seen since like I've ever seen a Samsung TV with the feature. And it's something that like no feedback can change them. The same way like every year customers sound off and they say, "Hey, it'd be great if you put Dolby Vision in your TVs," and Samsung goes, "Screw you, HDR10 plus." So it's just kind of like and that's the other thing like I really feel like with Sony getting away with this is nothing new. Like these manufacturers have a bad habit of not listening to consumers. Consumers defend them. They get these egos and they really genuinely feel big about themselves. Like, like we're better than you. We're the corporation. We tell you what to do. We tell you how to live. We make the products that you consume. And if you don't like it, get bent. And now it's kind of gone into a dangerous territory where it's like not only do we do all that other messed up stuff, but now we take your rights away as a product purchaser. You own that product. It's a digital product. We sold it to you under false pretenses. We're not going to get in any trouble. You know why? Because we're too big to fail. I genuinely can't stand that message. I think it's a dirty one. And I think that's something we keep seeing over and over again in this current market. Hey, shout out to the Christian Conservative. Thank you, brother, for your donation of $20. You say, with the U8G settings, is it possible to combine Vivid and Filmmaker mode settings? I think with the U8G, it's kind of challenging because I'll like even now I'm studying the S95B like crazy. More on that later in a different video, not to waste everybody's time. But back to the U8G, with the settings that I'm kind of creating, it's kind of hard because they react differently. Like Vivid will target entirely different metrics on almost every level that I can think of in terms of how contrast works and things like that. And then Filmmaker mode is entirely different. So combining the settings, you can maybe try to mix and match core settings. Those usually work, like your brightness, your contrast, sharpness, stuff like that, tint. But when you start getting into like the meat and the potatoes of how algorithmically the television processes the picture preset, those things tend to vary ridiculously from TV to TV. And I'll show you guys an example of that in a video coming up, probably like maybe my next video. I don't know. It really just depends. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but not anytime fast anyway. We'll see how it goes. But because I got the X95K coming. So we have the X85K, sorry. So we have this problem where it's just kind of like, it's hard because they do react very differently. Like picture preset, you think you just set it, you kind of lock in the settings for one size fits all. It doesn't work that way all the time. And some of these TV manufacturers have very different like combinations across the board depending on picture presets. So I don't know if you can combine settings successfully, but it never hurts to try. I think those are my genuine thoughts. I think with anything picture setting creation wise, it's always best to experiment with comfort zones based off of ambient light, where you are, what you're watching, because it's very different. And write down a source device. And that's where we get into like picture presets then start changing and algorithmically doing things very differently depending on even the source you're watching. Like I can tell you right now, Xbox Series X requires way different settings from PlayStation 5. The same way like Nintendo Switch, forget about it. It's not like a one size fits all. So that's where it gets challenging because it's like now you have different media sources that all interpret gamma differently or near black differently, contrast differently, all kinds of little aspects. And you have to really figure that stuff out and then see what you can pull from the TV processing. So no, I don't think that that's something that you can particularly mix and match, but it also, again, never hurts to try. Because I've seen people with my C1 settings, they just decided, you know what, I'm going to buy a secondary TV, and they end up buying the G1, and they plug in my C1 settings with the G1, and I hear all the time, like, oh my God, it looks amazing. Those are like crazy good results. And I'm like, Wow, I haven't even had the chance to test my settings on a G1, but I'll take your word for it. I mean, you're happy about it. Great. And I get that a lot with like other models too. Like people will try my H9F settings on the U8G and they'll be blown away by what they see. So it really does depend sometimes. So hopefully that was a detailed and helpful answer there. Rohan, what's going on, man? You said, I agree. Samsung flickers at 120 hertz on everything other than standard mode, which is ridiculous. I mean, like, Samsung has the most nauseating flickering effect I've ever seen. Like I have the Samsung S95B right now. If I activate black frame insertion, I'm gonna get sick. I don't know why they do it this way, but it's a very clear and evident flicking and or flickering, and honestly, no, I'm not like prone to getting like epileptic seizures or whatever, but at the same time, it's like it's really nauseating the way it flickers and the way motion moves while it's flickering. It's a very jarring effect, almost like if you were to be underneath incandescent lights that kept flickering or something. I don't know if that does something for some people, but I'm very prone to motion sickness with this kind of stuff, so I don't really like it too much. So, yeah, I agree with you there for sure. Patrick says, C1 settings, if I became a member, question mark. You said, I'm from Sweden. I don't know, does Sweden support the membership option? If not, what you can do is you can join the Patreon, and then I can add you to an email list, and then I can send you the C1 settings that I make, but only the current ones, because for whatever reason, when I upload my own settings videos that are already on my channel, magically the copyright system works brilliantly. Then they understand copyright law, and then now they flag everything, and they go, oh, they block it in all countries. It's my own video, and it says copyrighted by, and it'll say copyrighted by Quantum TV or whatever. And I'm like, I've never even put in a copyright on myself. That's total bullshit. So, and I've shown a couple of members that, and I think I've shown that on the Discord a couple of times, but it's really annoying. So I have to go through Patreon in order to help guys and gals in other countries. So there is a way to do it. It's a bit of a workaround, but you are going to be limited to only the newer C1 settings instead of the older stuff that I did do. Because the moment it picks up the audio and the visuals of the older stuff, it just will immediately block it. And I literally can't upload it, even though I physically have the videos. So it's really a pain. So you said, can I become, you said I can become a member. Yes. So long as you can become a member, like through the regular, like join button, then absolutely. Yeah. I've got hella C1 settings, like tons of them. So absolutely. I can shoot you a link if that's something you want to do. And then you can go through, you'll have a lot of fun experimenting and seeing which ones work best. And with all my settings, the important thing to keep in mind is they are viewer based. So it's built off of feedback. If you have feedback for the settings, things you want to see out of it, where you want it to go, and like you're running into unique issues. Like I was having a couple people like their panel variance trends more green, and so everything they would watch look a little bit more green in hue. Some people have a little bit more red, so some things look a little red. You have to accommodate for that, and some have really bad defects, but they're past their return period. So near black gamma issues and things like that, IRE issues, things like that. So I have to accommodate. Sometimes I have to make custom settings based off of different positionings all around. It's a long-winded way of saying everyone's feedback is helpful, and that will help these settings truly grow based off of what you need. So if you hit me up and you say, hey, Quantum, I'm having this issue, can you look into it? I always do my best to look into that. So yeah. So what I'll do is I'll send you this link here. I don't know if you can click it. It should be a link you can click. And if you want to become a member, you do that. And then after, find the C1 playlist, and then you'll be good to go there. But yeah, I mean, as far as this whole situation with Sony and just kind of doing whatever they want with people's property, frankly, in my personal view, it's one of those things that I think is not only just ultra shady, but I think it's something that like they constantly get a pass on the way every other major silver spoon corporation gets a pass on things. Like it's like what happens tomorrow if like, you know, you bought an electric car and they decide, you know what? We're no longer going to allow you the rights to charge your car because we own the terminals. It's you know, it's one of those things. It's like it's encroachment. It's a bit extreme, my example, I grant you, but it's kind of like I'll give a more realistic example. It's like, you know, you have your phone, you know, you were told that if you buy certain apps on your phone that you'd have it forever, and then Google decides they're going to go in and they say, you know what, you don't have access to these apps you paid for anymore. It's just really annoying and one of those things that I really can't stand, and I see it time and time again. Rohan asks, do you have settings for the X90J? If I become a member, I know you hate this TV, but in my country, India, the option I have is really limited. Let me check. I don't actually know off the top of my head. I typically try to get settings for most TVs, but I do know with the 90 series recently, between really just like last year and this year, I've been pretty fed up to the point where I almost just like walk away within the first like 72 hours, just completely over the situation. But I do know that you have a limited situation, so let's see. Let's see what I have. Sony X90J. I read that right. It's the X90J, right? Yes, the X90J. Let's see. Do I have any settings for this? The easy way would be to type this in and see if anything pops up. No, I don't have any settings for the X90J. That was one of the ones I just kind of walked away from like super early because I could not with that TV. So unfortunately, that's not something I do have. Um, did I? I don't even know if I made any settings for the new one that I just got in. Now that's something I got to check here for the X. What was it? No, X90K. I don't even think I did that because the problem is the moment I saw the haze, I couldn't really do anything about it. And I feel like if I put out settings, I want them to match my standards. And if it doesn't, well, then I'm kind of doing you a disservice. And if I feel like a TV doesn't have the latent potential or ability to go further, then I don't really do a whole lot for it. Now, surprisingly, I actually put out like one set of settings for the Sony X90K, which actually does shock me a lot. And then I ended up walking away from it after that, didn't do anything else, but that was the best I got with it. So unfortunately, that's where I got there. But yeah, man, this whole situation is crazy. I'm wrapping up the live stream here. If you guys have any additional questions, feel free to blot them off. Show the love on the next live stream. I'm pretty much doing this every Friday, 7 p.m. through 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The idea here, we're just trying to get your questions answered since I don't always have the ability to see all of your comments down below, but it is always something that I try to stay mindful of. So, do we have any last minute questions or anything, any lingering questions out before I go? And after that, hope everybody had a pretty good 4th of July weekend, hanging out, doing all that good stuff. I'll keep an eye on Prime Week next week to try to see if there are any, you just got to have it deals. And again, I'll try to keep the price point pretty low so that nobody's, looking at all these like $3,000 and $4,000 TVs, $2,000+ TVs. We'll try to keep it reasonable if I can, under $1,000, 1,500, that kind of thing, so that everybody can, for the most part, find some way to be able to benefit from this. And of course, some budget options as well. As I mentioned, I am going to be doing the X85K review. Those are going to be the next series of videos that we are going to be putting out. And as far as S95B content, I do have some things to share with you guys on that. So that'll also be kind of mixed in with that series, not with the series, but in that week of videos that we have on the schedule. That is something that we are going to be doing. So we have the final question here of the live stream. May have missed it. Thoughts on the new S95B crap update? I actually haven't heard anything about a new update. I actually, the other night, put it on to search and it said I was fully up to date. What's the deal with this update? Is it breaking anything? Or because I haven't really, I'm just kind of getting back in the swing of things, figuring out what everything is like. So, let me know what's going on here, because, I'm like literally just coming off of like relaxing off of a vacation. So I need full disclosure here because I don't know what's going on there. I appreciate that, Patrick. Yeah, if you want to become a member, you're more than welcome to do so. I'll do what I can to make sure that you get the most out of your C1. I'm probably one of the better people for that for sure. And I got you covered, brother. So I appreciate all the support. And XR versus X1 Ultimate upscaling. I think they're about the same. If I'm being honest with you, I haven't noticed a marked improvement in any way, shape, and or form. And all the artifacts that I found on TVs like the A9G, I still had on TVs like the X90J and things like that. So It was definitely a big challenge for sure. I think Sony's got a long way to go with their processing nowadays, which is weird because they like had it for a couple years back there, but definitely dropped the ball there. Craig says, "Congratulations, no cough tonight." Yeah, I'm actually doing better. I'm relaxing and not stressing as much. That's got to help build up the immune system or something. I don't know. I'm just chilling mostly. So yeah, okay, it's dropping the nits to 1,000 peak nits instead of 1,500. Are you serious? That's some bullshit. Oh man, that would piss me off like nobody's business. I would return that TV or sell it so freaking fast. That why take away one of its greatest advantages, bro? If that's like legit and like those numbers are actually founded, that's disgusting. It's kind of, bro, like what is happening to our community, like our tech community, man? First we have, Sony taking away digital media after you've bought it. Now you've got Samsung taking away peak nits after you've already bought the product as well. Like, and that's the other thing I don't like. These stupid updates. They come out with them after the fact, and then, you're comfortable with your product, you're good with it, you're happy. You've already written your 5-star review or whatever it is, and of course all the main cherry-picked reviewers have already reviewed this thing on old firmware. Then, Johnny come lately, they just nerf something, and then now you're kind of screwed. It's like, that's some bullshit, dude. Yeah, I definitely would be pissed too, bro. Like bro, like I can't believe that that's a. I mean, thanks for the heads up. Now, I mean, I wasn't gonna go back online anyway. I wasn't planning on it. I tried to search to see if there was a firmware out there to just do research on it, but I didn't know it was something like that egregious. There's no way I would do that. And I've even been hearing from LG fans that like a lot of members lately from the LGC1 side of things that, hey, my HDMI signaling override has been removed. It's no longer an option. The code doesn't work anymore. I mean, I hear that a lot, but I've been seeing an influx of that, so I don't really know what's going on at all. And you said everybody's mad right now. I got it for Samsung Effect for gaming on your PC, and you said, bro, they fired the update up on me. Oh man. So it was like an auto update. I always turn that crap off because I know how it is. Damn, that would be like the worst luck. You just log in to your TV and it's already updated. Oh man, forced updates. That sucks. Yikes. I've been there. I really have, and it's not fun. So I can only feel for you. But you know what? The best form of revenge, if you're still in your return period, just junk it. Get rid of it. Don't even give them the money after a stunt like that. Because if they're going to auto update and then remove 500 nits out of your television, that is a massive. That I mean, at that point, that's product breaking. And, you have to wait for the firmware to put that back, which good luck on that. I wouldn't mess with that. I don't know. It kind of has me like, do I even want my Samsung S95B? Like, what the hell are they going to try to pull with me? I don't know, man. That's some crazy nonsense for sure. You said you had it off and they still turned it on? Damn. That's some crazy shit. Now I've got to go in and make sure I didn't get auto updated, but I don't think I did. I mean, I'll check it, but yeah. But all right, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I'll be back, next Friday, 7 p.m. through 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just hanging out with you guys, answering questions and doing what we do here. I appreciate all you members who watch the channel, who support the channel. I thank you guys, like, the Christian Conservative. Thank you for donating tonight. And for everybody who just watches and has fun and answers questions and is a part of the community, I super appreciate you guys. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching the number one brand in honesty. I mean, I'll look more into the, what is this? You're saying, you said I'm not, what do you say? I'm not tight. You said, gotta stick with your C1. Yeah, I mean, I would be upset. I'm going to look more into that firmware and see what I can figure out about it. Because that sounds really crazy. That would really suck. But all right, guys, you guys have a safe